All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Saturday, July 13th. We got a 16-game MLB slate to dive into in today's video. Like we always do, we're going to go through each and every one of these games. I'm going to give you my lean on the side. I'll give you my lean on the total. We'll talk about any other plays, like player props that I like within the game as well. But as always, all of my final plays, if you do want to fade me, all of those plays are going to be in the pinned comment. Yesterday, we go 1 and 2. Our only win being the Cubs and Cardinals nerfy. We didn't get as many plays as maybe we would like to yesterday, but I did have a family member's funeral, so obviously we're going to prioritize that and put that first. So couple things lacking yesterday, I guess, including the picks, as well as our ride of the day. We didn't get one entered, so we'll run it back again today, guys. All you have to use is that hashtag ride of the day in the comments. I'm going to jump on board with one person's pick and giving you a shout out in the next video, win or loss. But the way we select the ride of the day is going to be you have to use that hashtag ride of the day in your comment and then go down and like what you think are the best ride of the days. The comment with the most likes will be the one that we ultimately end up rolling with. So yeah, get those hashtag ride of the days in there. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as well. Though we had a negative night last night, a 1 and 2 night is not going to kill us after the run that we've absolutely been on. So I'm still fired up. I'm still locked in. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Game number 1, we're looking at Detroit taking on the Dodgers. Yesterday's game, the Dodgers end up coming back and winning. They score 1 run in the 8th and then another one in the 9th to take the lead there. Today, on the mound, we do have a little bit different. We have Wrobelski on the mound for the Dodgers and then Montero on the mound for Detroit. So we don't have the pitching discrepancy that we had yesterday, which was Tariq Skubal and who was it, James Paxton, right? So I think in this spot, it's safe to lean a little bit closer to the Dodgers. Now, they've been rocky, and obviously this isn't their stud on the mound. Justin Wrobelski's 0-1 in the season with a 7.2 ERA, so obviously nothing to brag about there. So I'm not trying to say that he's the better pitcher over him in Montero, but Montero isn't like all that in a bag of chips, you know what I mean? So I think that if we're getting the Dodgers offense versus Detroit's offense, I think it's worth pulling the trigger on Dodgers here, minus 130. The one thing that I can say would keep this from being a final play would be the fact that that pitcher's on the mound. And it's like, how much do we really want to trust it? And, they barely won yesterday, right? They had to come from behind and win that game. So it's not like they're sitting there looking all good and, they're on fire or anything like that. But overall, I do think that they kind of check more boxes than Detroit here in this spot. Both bullpens kind of in a similar spot as well. So I'll lean Dodgers here on the money line. I don't mind taking a peek at maybe a team total over for the Dodgers either. That might be a way that I do it, and that might be the way to kind of hybrid the idea of betting the Dodgers without having to back this pitcher. So maybe that's something that we consider there as well, especially kind of involving the total there, because I don't know if I want this game total either way, under or over. I think that this is more of a Dodgers team total over type play today. So keep an eye on the pinned comment to see what we ultimately end up rolling with, because there could be a way that we work in the Dodgers here. But again, they have not been like the Dodgers that we know. They've been kind of struggling lately. All right, next up, we got the Chicago White Sox here taking on Pittsburgh. Yesterday's game, it was low scoring. I kind of saw that, right, but did not see how it went down 4-1, and Garrett Crochet pitching 2 innings there. Obviously not necessarily a depiction of his normal pitching version of himself, right? Because I think they were talking about him not even starting that game ahead of the break and whatnot, so they went with a short outing of him. So he did his job. We based our pick yesterday. I think I leaned towards the White Sox right off of Crochet, but he only pitches 2 innings. So that's definitely stuff you got to worry about and keep minding as you go into the All-Star break here, because it's kind of like, well, there's probably enough out there, but we get up early to do these videos, and I missed somewhere that he was only going to pitch a couple innings. So nonetheless, not a big deal. It's not my favorite series anyways, so I think I still lean towards the White Sox in today's video. Chris Flex on the mound going up against Luis Ortiz, but this again is like a spot in which I'm not necessarily loving. Like, I think this is a 50-50 matchup, and you have the White Sox for plus 130. Kind of makes a little bit of sense, so I'll lean in that direction. In terms of a total, I'll lean towards the under again. I don't necessarily see either one of these offenses absolutely exploding. We didn't see it yesterday either. But I do have 2 player props, both of which could be viable final plays. Looking at Eloy Jimenez under 1.5 bases, as well as Brian Hayes under 1.5 bases. Brian Hayes just did have 2 bases yesterday, but only a few times this season, or I should say as of late in the last few months, has he even gone back-to-back days with 2 or more bases. So it could be a little comeback down to earth spot for him. Versus righties on the season, batting 199. Extra base hit percentage drops to 10%. Definitely a spot in which I could see us kind of fading think of Brian Hayes in this spot. And also, like I said, Eloy Jimenez, similar type of thing there. We're going to get a lot of sliders from Ortiz, and that's not a pitch that Jimenez hits very, very well. So that's kind of how I stumbled upon that one. But again, this isn't my favorite matchup on the board. We got 16 games today. We don't need to force anything, especially as we prepare for the All-Star break. All right, Cardinals taking on the Cubs. This is a doubleheader spot here, so keep that in mind. Obviously, doubleheaders can get a little wonky and a little weird, and I don't love betting them all that much myself. But St. Louis has Lance Lynn on the mound, going up against Hayden Wesnecky here for Chicago. This probably would be the game that I would, I guess I could say, bet if I were to bet one of them. The next one is Kyle Gibson and Javier Assad. Obviously, those are two viable pitchers as well, but I do think that there's a little bit of a spot here to be considering betting St. Louis in game number one of this spot. Not too much. Like, I could see someone making a case for the Cubs at plus money, and I get that. But to me, them at home, first leg of a doubleheader with Lance Lynn on the mound, who I almost want to say has the upper hand against Wesnecky. I don't know if that's necessarily anything. I don't know if we could say that that's true, but he's got more experience. He's way better at home this year than he is on the road. Guess what? He's at home. So I think this could be a decent spot for St. Louis. I don't know if I'm personally betting it myself because of the doubleheader spot, but that's kind of where I'm leaning as of right now. The total sitting at 9. I think that this is an under type spot. You know, what we saw from them yesterday was a 5-1 spot, a win from Chicago, in which, you know, Sonny Gray gave you 7 innings. Chicago just scored, what was it, like, I want to say they scored 3 runs after the 8th inning or after the 7th, something like that, right? So obviously kind of a back and forth type game overall, but nonetheless, I do think that this is a decent spot for St. Louis in this spot, in a bounce back spot, but the doubleheader might be keeping me away from it. So I'll lean towards the under as well as St. Louis, but I don't think this becomes a final play, and I'm just being honest with you guys. I know people hate when I'm like, why are you giving the pick if you're not going to, or they say, why are you giving the pick if you're not going to be confident about it? It's like, well, because we are going through every single game, and I'm not going to have 100% confidence in every single game. Simple math. All right, Baltimore taking on New York. Baltimore catches the L yesterday. It was a win for the Yankees. Garrett Cole went 6 innings. Today on the mound for the Yankees is going to be Luis Gil. He's not all that great on the road, I will say. Going up against Grayson Rodriguez, who has been very good at home. If we flash to my MLB dashboard here, which you guys can get access to very simply, it's $2.99 per month. All you have to do is become a channel member, and I post a link for you every single day, and it stays good for the month. There's a join button next to the subscribe button here on YouTube, and there's also a link to become a baller. That's what we call the channel members. In the description below. So yeah, go ahead and check that out, guys, if you do want to become a channel member. But I'll show you what I'm seeing here. So obviously we have some green, numbers from Gil, and that's fine. But on the road, a little bit more shaky, right? Grayson Rodriguez, like I said, very good at home. But both of these pitchers are going to be big-time fastball pitchers. Yankees hit fastballs well, okay. But look at the Baltimore Orioles. Better. They hit fastballs, and Gil's going to give you 53% fastballs. So I think that this could be a spot for Baltimore to bounce back. I'm trusting the better pitcher. I'm trusting what could be the better bats today. The only thing I'm concerned with would be the bullpen. I do think New York has a better bullpen, and obviously these divisional games can be kind of close no matter what. So this is going to be a lean towards Baltimore. I could see myself pulling the trigger on it, but I think most guys in the bullpen for both teams should be good to go. And the one thing that I kind of concerns me about taking Baltimore is, are the Yankees starting to get it going again? Now, the offense hasn't fully clicked. They've gone 2-4-4 in their last 3 games in terms of runs scored, right? But they are 2-3 in their 2-1 in their last 3 games. So interested to see if the Yankees are turning it around, but as of right now, I think that Baltimore needs to kind of kick it into gear as well. They've lost 4 straight games. This looks like a spot in which they can at home. Give me them on the money line. In terms of the total 8.5, I don't necessarily want to sit here and say Grayson Rodriguez is going to go out there and absolutely shut down the Yankees. I showed that he throws a lot of fastballs, and the Yankees do as well. So I guess the way that I can give the Yankees some credit here is leaning towards the over 8.5. All right, Philly taking on Oakland, obviously another spot in which we can probably look at this and say Philly might be the move. You have Tyler Phillips on the mound, who isn't someone that I'm all that familiar with. I think he's only pitched 1 game, I want to say even this season, and it wasn't even a start, right? So he doesn't have, I think he has like 3 innings under his belt. So nothing to really go off of there, nor do I necessarily want to, but obviously this is a Philly team that the offense is, I shouldn't say obvious, but it should be obvious to most. This Phillies offense is better than the A's. I shouldn't say it's obvious because yesterday the A's won 6-2. So that was kind of shocking. Ranger Suarez against Hogan Harris, and still the A's went out there and won. So this is probably so juiced because everyone in America believes that the Phillies are going to bounce back, and I do as well. The way that we might play this, and I'm really putting a lot of trust into a pitcher that I'm not all that familiar with, is going to be taking a peek at the Phillies on the first 5 run line. So minus 0.5 in the first 5, minus 125 over on ESPN bet. I think the Phillies get to Mitch Spence today pretty quickly, just due to the fact that obviously, you know, they didn't necessarily look all that great yesterday. They must have some runs in the tank. So give me the Phillies here in this spot. I don't mind them on the full game money line, but that's got to be a parlay play or something, right? It's minus 192, a little bit of a force there if you want that to be a single bet. In terms of a total, I might just lean towards Phillies team total over, very similar to how we talked about the Dodgers a few minutes ago. That's a way to kind of bet Phillies money line without having to worry about their pitcher doing well. Like if he lets up 1,000,000 runs, but the Phillies score 1,000,001 runs, then, you know, they kind of win, but they also hit their team total over at the same time. So that might be the way that we end up kind of rolling about that one. Red Sox taking on Kansas City. Yesterday's game ends up being a 6-1 victory for Kansas City. That was Cole Reagans versus Cooper Criswell for you. Today we have Seth Lugo on the mound for Kansas City, going up against Cutter Crawford, who obviously Cutter Crawford's had a season in which he's definitely excelled. He's looked pretty good in his last couple starts. Up against Miami, 1 earned run through 6 innings, 7 Ks. But then against the Yankees, 7 innings pitched, only 4 hits, and 9.7 pitches per inning. Like, that's pretty damn impressive. Seth Lugo, on the other hand, has been really good as well. Last 5 starts here, 1.2 ERA, averaging 7 Ks per game, averaging 15 pitches per inning. So both these guys are kind of in a groove right now, and I'm not afraid to look at both these guys and say, you know what, go do your thing. So I like, honestly, the under right off the rip, but I'm going to lean towards Red Sox in a bounce-back spot here. Their offense definitely is better than Kansas City's, even though Kansas City just scored 6 yesterday to the Red Sox 1. Last 30 days here, Red Sox are top 5 in virtually every category, including ISO and OPS. So it's like, slugging and OPS. Like, these are some spots in which I think the Red Sox could get a couple early on Lugo, and only a couple. Like, I'm saying this is still a 4-2, 4-3, 5-3 type of a game anyways. But overall, I just can't really fade Cutter Crawford right now. And then I think the Red Sox backs do bounce back. One spot that I like here in this spot would be considering a Nerfy. I think you're going to get some decent odds on it too, because obviously both these teams haven't been trending in a Nerfy direction, and certainly not the Red Sox as much as they have been scoring as of late. So let's see if we can find that really quickly right away, so we can kind of get an idea of what those odds would be. So for a Nerfy here in this spot, yeah, plus 100 on ESPN. That's a pretty good price for a Nerfy. Obviously, it's due to the fact that I would even say the Red Sox might be killing those odds because they've been scoring so many runs. But nonetheless, like, go ahead and consider that one. I think Kansas City have been scoring a magnitude of runs in the last few games as well. So kind of a tough Nerfy look, but I think both these pitchers can do it. All right, guys, before we do jump into the rest of the games, I want to talk to you about Sleeper. I'm always preaching Sleeper because it truly is, like, I'm not just blowing smoke up here, you know what? Like, it truly is my favorite player prop app out there. All you have to do is use the link in the pinned comment. You're going to get a Dylan Cease free square here for his start today, as well as your first deposit doubled. You throw in $100, they will double it. You have a new account balance of $200. It's super, super fun, and honestly, like I said, the best player prop app out there. More lines available, more players available. You can even do alternate lines. Like, it's really, really cool, guys. Go ahead and check it out. That link is in the pinned comment. Go get this C-square, and I believe even if you sign up today, you're going to get like a couple other free squares as well. And they drop more promo squares. Like yesterday, it's just a random, Cole Reagan square. And it's like, well, it's Friday, but okay, go ahead and drop a random square, right? A discounted square. They did it with the Skeens on Thursday. Like, they hook it up. So go check out Sleeper, guys. That link is in the pinned comment. All right, let's move on here to Washington taking on Milwaukee. Milwaukee on the mound for them is going to be Dallas Keuchel. I'm still not exactly sure where to come out on. Going up against Mitchell Parker here for Washington, who he's kind of had a rough road season so far. So, again, this is one where it almost has me scratching my head. But the one thing I will say is Milwaukee against lefties last 30 days. Both these pitchers are lefties, by the way. Milwaukee very good against lefties, not necessarily from a power perspective. I think we talked about this recently, but from a getting on base and even still scoring runs and all that. And I think that, if Washington does what they've been doing, which is not really bat lefties all that well, they're kind of bottom 5 in a lot of offensive stats that matter other than striking out, which is weird. I think that, they might not be able to keep up with, the Joneses here in this spot. So I like Milwaukee on the money line here. But again, that Dallas Keuchel spot really, really has me kind of shaking. He has 3 starts so far. They've gotten better each time. He did kind of shut down the Dodgers, I want to say, in his last start. It was like 5 innings pitched of, I think it was scoreless if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it up in my notes, But yeah, I think this could be a spot in which maybe Washington's bats being bad against lefties kind of helps him ease into this. So give me Milwaukee on the money line here. The total sitting at 9 runs. It's a little bit too high overall, in my opinion, because you do have 2 pitchers on the mound that could kind of get in trouble, right? So I'll lean towards, it's a little bit too low in my mind. I said a little too high. I'll lean towards the over, but if this was 8.5, I'd probably actually consider playing the over, but it's at 9. I could see a 5-4 game, but both these pitchers could allow, 3 runs in their start, and then the bullpens come in, and Washington's bullpen's kind of mediocre. Milwaukee's bullpen is good, so I shouldn't say that, but overall, I still do think that one of these guys could have a bad start, so I can't really get to the under here. All right, Cincinnati taking on Miami yesterday. Cincinnati wins 7-4. Here in this spot, we have Cincinnati's Andrew Abbott on the mound, who he definitely has been better at home than on the road, going up against Edward Cabrera, who has struggled on the road, and obviously this Miami offense is going to struggle overall. Flashing back into the dash here, you can see Abbott's going to give you 60+% fastballs. Look at where Miami ranks in terms of runs above average last 30 days against the fastball, 26th. So I do think that this is a spot in which Miami probably doesn't score a bunch of runs. And I'm not saying that, Cincinnati's going to go out there and score a bunch, but if you have these pitchers, Cabrera should boost this Cincinnati offense a little bit. So give me Cincinnati here on the money line. I don't hate that spot, but I hate the price. So I wouldn't expect that to be a final play. That's just me kind of giving you the FYI. But one thing I could consider that you might get a better price at is a potential lean towards the Marlins here, team total under, depending on what you can get it at, under 3.5. If you can get that for maybe, let's see, we can look that up really quickly. If we can get that for, say, decent odds, like near even odds or plus money, that could definitely be something that I consider. But it is, plus 124 for under 3.5, minus 140 for under 4.5. So those could easily be 2 plays that we look at. And that's similar to how we've done it with the Phillies and the Dodgers here, where it's like we kind of know which way we want to go, right? But I don't necessarily fully want to trust Cincinnati's offense. So why not just fade the Marlins offense? That makes sense. So yeah, I think that that's the way that we would play the total as well, a team total there. And it's kind of a hybrid of both Cincinnati and the under. A player prop that I'm liking in this spot is going to be Josh Bell under 1.5 bases. King of the bases reporting for duty here. He's cashed the under here in 8 of his last 10 games. He's cashed the under in 63% of games on the season. On the road, 73% of games. And then on the road against lefties, also 73% of games. So I think this could be a good spot. Against lefties on the year, his batting average drops to .216. Now, his extra base hit percentage does jump, so that's a little worrisome. But Andrew Abbott's extra base hit percentage goes from 45.1 against, all batters to a 25% extra base hit percentage against righties. So hopefully that kind of null and voids that spot there. So yeah, I do think this is a good spot for a potential fade of Josh Bell. All right, Astros taking on the Rangers here. We do have Spencer Spaghetti Arrieta on the mound for Houston, going up against Nate Eovaldi. Eovaldi has had a good year, but he has definitely struggled on the road. And it's kind of the opposite for Arrieta. Like, he's been better at home. So we do, weirdly enough, I want to say there's a pitching advantage for Houston, but that can't be the case. It's still Nate Eovaldi going up against Spaghetti, right? So I'm having trouble kind of justifying that. So I think overall, obviously Houston's going to have the better bats, and I do believe that. They won yesterday. But to me, it's I can't really get past Nate Eovaldi's name here going up against Spencer Arrieta. It just doesn't necessarily seem like a spot in which we can really trust that, oh, he's been so bad on the road this season. It's well, it's still Spencer Spaghetti against Nate Eovaldi. That's where, it's almost that's where this opens and shuts for me. So I lean towards Texas. I kind of wanted to get to Houston, but I just can't seem to do that with the pitcher on the mound. Both the teams have been playing good baseball. 6 of their last 10 games, the Texas Rangers have won. Houston has won 4 straight and 7 of their last 9. So it's they're playing good baseball, both of them. I just think that there's a pitching advantage here for Texas. This would probably be a first 5 play, if anything, due to the fact that, the bullpen, definitely there's a discrepancy there. I do believe that there's no question Houston has a better bullpen than Texas. So I'll lean towards Texas first 5 money line, trusting Nate Eovaldi, even though he has some question marks here on the road. When it comes to a total at 8.5, I don't mind the under. I think that this game, if Texas were to win it, it's because the Astros don't go out there and score a boatload of runs. And it's not like this Texas team has, they're not going to drop 6 on you every single night, right? So I could see this being a spot in which, a 5-3 game or a 4-3 game, that type of thing, no matter who wins either side. Mets taking on Colorado. Not the biggest of interest here. We have Christian Scott on the mound for the Mets going up against Ryan Feltner for Colorado. I think that this is obviously a spot, and the odds are kind of saying that, in which the Mets are heavily favored for right reasons. They win yesterday, was it 7-5, 7-6, something like that. I could see something like that again. I'll lean towards the over just because I can't really trust that either one of these pitchers is going to go out there and shut down the other team. The problem is the Rockies are batting on the other side. So maybe, and they scored yesterday, so I give them credit, but maybe this is a team total Mets play. But I'll lean towards the over as well as the Mets. It would be a money line parlay piece, if anything, there. But I'll lean to some form of the over, like I'm saying. Maybe it's Mets over 4.5 or something like that for some good odds. All right, Tampa Bay taking on Cleveland. Gavin Williams on the mound for Cleveland. He has one bad home start and one really good road start so far in his 2 starts this season. Yesterday, Tampa Bay wins 2-0. On the mound for Tampa Bay is going to be Zach Littell today. He's been really good at home, so I think that there's a way to go about this. I think that we could look at, just from a perspective here in the first 5, maybe a Guardians team total under, trusting that Littell kind of does his job. But the Guardians definitely do have a little bit better of an offense, and I should say more than a little bit. But I would say the Rays have the pitching advantage here. But then it bounces back to the Guardians' favor for the bullpen aspects. Like, they have a very good bullpen. Tampa Bay doesn't necessarily. So I'm kind of on the edge here of saying, okay, well, can we get Cleveland for plus money and trust that Williams is good on the road because he has one good road start? Or do we just trust what probably should be more automatic, and that's Zach Littell, who's been pitching well, that rhymed, and I guess he had one bad start before, but he had a couple good starts in a row, okay? I forget who it was against, but he got rocked in his last start. So do we trust the consistency guy who's been consistent over that last 4 starts prior to that last one, or do we go with kind of the wild card pitcher here in Williams? I'm going to lean towards, if we can get Cleveland at plus money, that's probably the way that I would lean. But obviously, you could tell I'm playing a game of Pong in my head about this game because nothing is really lining up. So your guess is as good as mine. I'm going to think that for Cleveland for plus money, if I think that this is obviously a back and forth, then I could see both sides, but I'll take the plus money on one side. One thing that I actually could end up rolling with is an under here. We just haven't seen the explosiveness of offense, definitely out of Tampa Bay as of late. It's almost like when they get to 5 runs, it's like pulling teeth. And Cleveland's offense, for a good offense, is starting to go kind of like that direction in terms of runs being scored. So an under 8 here with 2 wild card-ish pitchers on the mound, or one of them being wild card, one being like is he going to have a bad start like last start or pitch well like he did before? I'm kind of shaking in my boots there too, but I'll still lean towards the under. Tell me that's not the most confusing breakdown we've ever done on the channel. Like, I don't even know where I came out there. Yikes. All right, San Diego taking on Atlanta. I believe Dylan Cease is on the mound for San Diego. I've seen it kind of bounce back and forth between him and Waldron a couple of times, but Waldron pitched yesterday, so that's just got to be like a glitch in this system here. Overall, I do think, or on the mound for now, the Atlanta is going to be Ronaldo Lopez. So you have 2 good pitchers on the mound. This is definitely a spot in which my immediate thought was, can we kind of get behind a Nerfy, which I don't necessarily mind whatsoever. So I think that's going to be the spot that I do lean right away. But I'm going to trust the Padres and kind of what they're doing here. Yesterday they lose 6. They've scored 1 run in their last 2 games, right? But this Atlanta team, like that yesterday, 6 runs. I don't know if that's them turning a corner, or if all of a sudden they just were able to kind of score some runs late and whatnot, because they scored everything after the 5th inning. You know what I mean? So it's not like Waldron even went out there and got shelled. I expect Dylan Cease to be even a little bit better than Waldron, right? So I think I'm going to lean towards San Diego in this spot, but I'll tell you, it is a little shaky to see that, Atlanta offense. Like, you don't want to be betting against Atlanta offense when they start to cook. But overall, I do think that this is a decent spot. We have 2 good pitchers on the mound as well, like I mentioned. So even if the Padres were to win this one, I think they squeak one out like 4-3 or something like that. So I would lean towards the under. It's down at 7, which is where I probably lean towards either the Nerfy or even the first 5 under here. But overall, I just can't picture a bunch of runs being scored in this game. So maybe you can get an alternate line of 7.5 or anything like that. So yeah, my main play is going to be, related to runs in this game, whether it's the Nerfy first 5 under or the full game under. If you get 7.5, that's obviously a hell of a lot better to take the under there than 7. But we'll see what we can come up with there. Keep an eye on the pinned comment. All right, San Fran taking on Minnesota. This is one of our L's yesterday. We had Minnesota on the money line. Hayden Birdsong on the mound now. He only has a few starts under his belt, obviously, but I would say that there's nothing really to brag about. It's not like he's getting crushed, but he's allowing at least 2 to 3 runs every single game, and his whip doesn't look great. His advanced numbers don't look all that great. Simeon Woods Richardson on the mound for Minnesota, who he's definitely had some spotty starts. I wouldn't say as of late, but overall as well. So I don't want to sit here and be like he's an absolute stud, but compared to Hayden Birdsong, I feel like we should have a pitching advantage here for San Francisco, for Minnesota. And you're looking at a team in which, they just got smoked yesterday, and they're the better offense. Like Minnesota scored, what was it, 7-1? Yeah, 7-1 yesterday. Like they should be in bounce back territory here. So give me them on the money line. Kind of got burned with it yesterday because I would have said the same thing. They're the far better team. They pretty much check all the boxes, and look what happened, right? So not gonna say this is an absolute lock, but this is probably something that ends up being a final play for me. Minnesota on the money line. Now the total sitting at 8 right now. I'd like to think that we're betting the Twins because I think they score a few more runs, so I'll lean towards the over. So we'll see where that one comes out. But again, like I'm kind of coming at this from an offensive perspective for Minnesota. Overall, I want them to score some runs and put up a good number today. So I will, correlate to that, lean towards the over. All right, St. Louis taking on Chicago. This is obviously, we talked about it, this is the second game of a doubleheader. And though I leaned St. Louis in the first one, I don't mind the Cubs in this spot, but at that point, if you're going to bet the Cubs in this spot, you might as well roll the dice on the Cubs in both games, so you're getting the plus money on either side, because the strategy to that is, well, it's hard to beat a team twice in one day, right? So if you take the underdog even one of those times and they win, they'll cover up and you'll make profit even if they lose the other first or second game, right? So I like the Cubs in this spot, which would then say, like, let's enforce the idea of the bet the underdog twice. So that would be how I would play it. I don't think that I'm going to get there, but either way, like I think that this is probably Javier Assad versus Kyle Gibson. I like Assad here in this matchup and in this spot. He's pretty good on the road, which is a good thing to see. So overall, that's how I'd play it. It's a doubleheader. We don't have to spend too much time with it. All right, Angels taking on the Mariners here. We have what I would say is a pretty good pitching advantage for Seattle here. George Kirby on the mound going up against Jose Soriano. Kirby's been pretty good as of late, 1.6 ERA in his last 5 games, 3.3 ERA on the season, pretty good, 1.0, so 1.1 flat whip on the season, 2.88. What I like is his average against is pretty good on the road as well. So I think this is a spot for George Kirby, but are we really going to say that this Mariners offense is going to go out there and tag the Angels pitcher, Jose Soriano? I'm not exactly sure. This was a high-scoring game yesterday, right? 6-5. I'll lean Mariners, but for the price you're getting them at like minus 148 on Caesar's best bet right now, yeah, that's a lot of money to be spending for a team that the offense just does not seem to be there. So if you love pitching, you want to back pitching, be my guest and roll with that price. But this probably stays as a lean here for me. Maybe we could say first 5 team total under for the Angels. It's kind of backing George Kirby and not having to worry about the offense. Maybe that's a way that we play it as well, which kind of leads me to my lean towards the under. I also don't mind a Nerfy in this spot at all either, because when you think about it, you have what I would consider the better pitcher for Seattle, right? Going up against, I guess a better offense, the Angels, but I think he should be able to get through 3 outs for them, right? And then you have Jose Soriano, who would be the guy that we're kind of worrying about. But like when you look at Seattle, it's like, well, they're dead last in average against righties last 30 days, 5th worst in WRC plus, 28th in OPS. Like Jose Soriano should be able to at least get through 1 inning of them too. So maybe the Nerfy is going to be a move here as well. All right, we got the D-backs taking on Toronto in this spot. We have Yelber Diaz. Yelber Diaz, I think it's his second career start here, going for or at least second start of the season, but I believe he didn't play in the majors prior to that first start, if I'm not mistaken. Going up against Jose Barrios here on the Toronto side of things. Barrios has not been all that great. Last 5 games, he got an ERA of 4 flat. On the season, he's got a 4 ERA. His FIP on the road is 5.95, whereas this Arizona offense is pretty good at hitting righty. So do we kind of trust the young kid and fade Barrios and lean towards Arizona? I guess that's the only way and path that I can think of. My problem is that, you're looking at a young pitcher here at minus 130 odds. You're paying a lot for kind of what I would consider somewhat of a question mark. So I lean Arizona solely because I can't really seem to get to the Toronto side of things, but overall, I can admit that there's a little bit of a red flag there of backing a young kid pitcher, right? In terms of the total, it's sitting at 9. I could see a 4-3, but maybe a 5-4 game at maximum. So I'll lean under, but I don't think that makes its way into being a final play, in all honesty. Guys, it's going to wrap it up for today's show. Hope you guys did enjoy. Keep an eye on the pinned comment for any added plays or anything like that. Like I said, we were at a funeral all day yesterday, so didn't get as many plays as probably I would have you guys would have liked out there, but, life takes priority. So hopefully you guys don't mind that, and hopefully get a few winners out there today. We're still on a crazy run. I think it's 31-11 in the month of June, which is absolutely mind-blowing, but appreciate everyone that tunes in every single day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. All right, peace out.